January Economic Development meeting. We have a pretty robust agenda, so we're going to get started. Mr. Moore, can you do the roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Hines.
Present, sir.
Mr. Kovacic.
Present.
Ms. Link. Mr. Mitchell.
Present.
Ms. Revel.
Present.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Smith.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay. I'd like to start by welcoming new members here, by welcoming our new members. Mr. Smith. I don't think he needs any introduction, but I'll let him introduce himself to us. Yes.
Oh, you know me, a man of few words. Just hello, glad to be here.
And Mr. Kovalchik.
Yes, I was recently on the PRHA, and they moved me over to the EDA, so I'm happy to be here with y'all.
Okay, welcome, welcome. Let's start with the minutes from the November meeting. I trust you all got those in your packets. Are there any additions or corrections?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move adoption of the minutes.
Second.
Which ones?
The November.
The second was by Smith. All right. Mr. Hines.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kovacic.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
Mr. Scott, do you want to vote? I know you
Yes,
just
I'll
walked in.
read the minutes. I don't have to be here to read them.
And Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carries.
Can we move to the December minutes?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make adoption to accept the December minutes as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
And Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That brings us to the financials.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to go over both November and December because I don't think we went over November statement at last meeting. I'm going to kind of give a more summarized today since we're going to cover both November, December. For the month ending November 30, the total cash and investment were $1,735,758. Total assets were $316,082. Capital assets total $1,205,661, and other assets, which is including property held for resale and cash held in escrow, total $11,799,074. Total assets were $15,056,575. Total liability were $47,156, and net position totaled $15,009,419 at end of the November 30. Operating expense for the month November totaled $14,760, and non-operating income totaled $1,402 for month of November. For the month of ending December 31st, total cash and investment were $1,718,047, and total assets were $316,082. Capital asset remains the same, totaled $1,205,661. For other assets, property held resale totaled $15,919,575, which is including 8 parcels was purchased from Victory Crossing. Cash held escrow totals $1,011,110. Total assets for the month of December were $16,930,686. Total liability were $173,768. This is including the short-term loan for $5,131,612 for the repurchase 8 parcel. Net position totaled $14,996,780, over which $12,463,855 was unrestricted for the month December. Operating expense for month December totaled $12,868, and non-operating income totaled $155. And in your package, you will see additional schedules, Schedule A, B, and C. And also there's a schedule including the local incentive grant, what was approved, budgeted, what was approved as of today, as of December, and what is remained to be awarded. I'm happy to answer any question you may have.
Okay, hearing none. Can I get a motion
I think we send those to audit, so do
to
we?
accept, well,
Subject to audit.
to audit, yes.
You have to file them for. Madam Chair, if I could just add one thing. I just
Okay.
wanted to thank staff for working with the, adding the additional things about the grants so we can have a snapshot of what we have left to be awarded. So that's really helpful for us to, as we make these decisions. So I just wanted to thank the city manager and her staff for that. Do we need to take a vote on that, or we just audit? Just
I
file
think
it?
we just accept it.
Okay.
Except
Okay.
Yes. Old business, there is none that I'm aware of.
No.
New business, we've had a couple of, we had a couple of terms to expire and one term to expire and one resignation that happened to be officers. So we need, I'm the only officer left, we need to nominate a vice chair and a treasurer. And in order to do that, I'd like to ask if anyone would like to work on the nominating committee.
I'll certainly get on the nominating committee.
Okay, Mr. Scott?
If no one else wants to, I'll be happy to do so. If one of the defer to Mr. Kovacic or Mr. Mitchell if they prefer. If not, I will.
So we will present their findings at the next meeting and vote on that, so we won't be running short here.
We need to back up one about budget discussion on the financials.
Oh, I'm sorry. Budget discussion.
Yes, we have an item this morning, Commissioners, with regards to you all's budget. And I will turn it over to Mr. Ashby. But this item is regarding the Victory Village litigation and how some numbers will need to be addressed in the budget, in you all's budget to address some of the invoices that we've had for that. But I'll turn it over to Mr. Ashby for some clarification.
Good morning, Chairman Revel, Commissioners. Happy New Year. As you all know, we have been quite successful, and I think we've sent out a couple of emails with regard to recouping the Victory Crossing property. As part of that, in last year's budget, you all put in place a legal fund line item, as well as the city attorney's office also put in a legal fund line item to address the Victory Crossing expenses. As we came to the end of wrapping that matter up and getting to the end of the year, as I've mentioned to you all with regard to other properties, and as part of the reason you all put a legal budget together because of outside counsel and increased that, I believe, in the subsequent year, we have a few bills outstanding as we're wrapping those up. And as I've advised previously, I think for the purposes of proper accounting, those expenses should be reflected associated with that particular property. In that vein, as we're getting to these last few items, I am requesting that the EDA seek a budget adjustment to move those last few dollars over. We have done it in the prior fiscal year, month to month, but now we're into a new year and we have a few more items that need to move over into that budget. So I'll answer any questions you all may have. And let me just say as an update, we have closed on the property. We are dealing with the last few bit of paperwork with regard to settlement agreements. The last bill for December, I think, was roughly about $1,000, so we are truly at the end. We're just sort of backtracking. Of course, we had some heavy months, the last few months when we were in arbitration and just before we settled. And so we're asking for that adjustment so that money can be properly reflected on EDA's budget and then associated with that particular property as we close out.
Are you asking about, is this for the 2018 budget that you're asking to modify, or are you asking to move the cost into 2019?
No. This would be 2018-19, the current year. Right. This current year, it's over.
So let me clarify if I can a little bit. What we have is we'd like to make the city attorney's office whole. There is an amount of about roughly $95,000 in legal expenses that they have paid associated with the Victory Village property. What we would like to do is make them whole with that $95,000 some odd dollars. Then staff is also suggesting that as we look to move forward in developing the property and potentially selling not only the Victory Village property, but as well as other properties, you will have other legal expenses. So there are two line items. One is the line item specifically associated with Victory Village. Then you also have a line item that is a administrative legal line item that you currently have just $10,000 in. We are asking again two things. One, a budget amendment for $95,000 roughly to make the city attorney's office whole, but then an additional $40,000 to go into your administrative legal line item to take you to a total of $50,000 to cover any other expenses that may come up with the development of the properties that you all have, for a total of roughly $135,488.
Actually, I'm going to defer to Mr. Scott.
Two quick questions. So I'm looking at the proposed final draft of 2019. I think we had, in general expenses, we had allocated $10,000 for legal, and then I'm looking at that same budget for our specific properties, and I think we had allocated on line item, I think it's 521014 is the section area of $100,000 for this year. Are those the pools of funds that we're talking about now, or have those pools have already been expended? Or you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I prefer to finance if they can help me out.
So we have already expended on, I'll start with line item 521014, which is contractual legal specifically for the properties. That line item started off with $100,000. We have expended to this point just over $74,000. You have roughly $25,000 in that line item. There is another invoice, outstanding invoice of $1,000.
So we're in budget. We're below budget for this expenditure. Okay.
We were looking at, to make it easy, just a budget adjustment of exactly that $95,000. You see it come in, you see it go out, and then you leave that $25,000 roughly that's still left in that line item, just in case there's anything else that comes up. Again, trying to make them whole. Then we are looking at that 5219. I want to make sure I'm looking at the right number. You have the. I've got to get the line item right, but yes, the other line item, which is the administrative legal, which is $10,000. We have not touched that. Again, because that's not associated specifically with a property, but we anticipate, as we develop the properties, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the meeting, we anticipate the need for additional funding for the legal work that will be done with those properties.
Mr. Hines.
If I could just ask a follow-up question, and so we are needing an additional funds above and beyond the 100,000. So we've satisfied up to 25,000 remaining. So we would need another.
To keep it simple, we were saying 95,000 to make them whole. Again, for that line item, 40,000 for the other, so roughly 135,000.
For a total expense for
$135,488 would be the total budget adjustment.
have you identified, you as staff, identified potential places we can make said budget transfer from? Or are we thinking about taking it from any reserves we may have?
We were looking at the easiest way would be to take it from the reserves. We can certainly adjust the budget, but I don't feel like at this point you have enough money from other line items. Your budget is set, it's lean where it is. We anticipate just adjusting out of the reserves to make that happen. And then I will say that going forward, as we get into budget season, we want to make sure that administrative legal line item continues to be that 50,000 going forward. Just again, because with the momentum and excitement that we have going on, we will be developing these properties.
Additional.
I do have one other question, and it may not necessarily pertain to this particular item, but it probably would tie into this. Have we received the anticipated costs of keeping up with the PRHA properties that have recently been transferred over to us, so we can I think we're going to have to make an budget adjustment there this year as well.
You will. We have not received those numbers yet. We have provided the information to Mr. Glover, the contract holder, and he is getting those numbers back to us so we can have an idea. Again, you get out there and
It's more of a guess. I completely understand that.
But we will need to make that adjustment as well. A number of the properties, just as a side note, a number of the properties he's kind of already been cutting just because there's no official line out there in the grass that says
Sure.
it's this or this. But we anticipate having that for February.
Do you have just a round ballpark number on that? I mean,
We don't. Not at this point. I would hate to speculate.
So when you say make the city attorney's office whole, that means these costs have already been paid? You've already paid, at least for outside legal services?
Certainly.
And it's come out of your budget, you've already paid these folks, and now you want to be reimbursed?
Correct. Madam Chair, if I might. Yes. Historically, and when I say historically, back 12 years ago, I think the agreement was from PPIC and the EDA to pay $10,000 into the city attorney's office for your legal services. When we got into the situation with Victory Crossing and there were going to be a significant number of outside legal fees, those things that aren't typically handled in our office, we expanded our budget and we take those expenses in for efficiency because I'm the one checking the bills and aligning it with what's going on. So typically we absorb those. When EDA put those items in the budget because we knew they were going to be significant and they were carrying over for at least 2 cycles, I think 2 years, we then, from a financial standpoint, made those transfers internally as those bills came through. We never, part of the reason for that is because much like my discussion with the city council, when you're talking about legal fees, as many of you know, one year it may be $100,000, next year it may be $1 million, then it drops back down. So in order to level out some of those issues is why those bills come initially through my office until the point in time that you all set up those particular line items.
Sir.
may I ask a question of the finance staff? Would it be, being that our cash is, we've all been concerned about cash. We're all concerned about, where our position is. Being that this is a fee that's associated with the acquisition of this property, is it financially prudent of us to discuss possibly putting it into the bond issuance to help with that so we're not so cash strapped, and especially since we have some unknown expenditures?
It depends on how directly it relates to the acquisition of the property. If it's for the settlement of, that's not directly related to the acquisition of the property, then you wouldn't be able to do that.
So it's a bit of a stretch, is that what you're
That's
saying?
right. Very stretch.
I guess my only issue, I mean, I'm supported more than likely, but I just hate surprises, especially in light of all the other things we have. This is a surprise to hear this today for the first time that we're going to have, that we're asking for $190,000 to be moved, $135,000 to be moved. That's the only issue I have, but I think it's I think we don't have, we kind of, as most of this transaction's been, we got a gun to our head most of the time. So, but I'm not pleased with it because I'd like to have known in advance that these were the suggestion that was going to be made, and this was the solution.
Mr. Hines.
And I'm sorry, I keep going back for this another question here on this, but I kind of echoed Mr. Scott here a little bit. I think, we did budget monies to cover this, and generally speaking, to me, it's kind of atypical to receive this type of notification at the 11:55 of the midnight hour. Again, I think we should make the city attorney whole, but I would like to maybe research to see how we best can do that within the confines of our budget. Maybe it is a combination of fund balance and a combination of other cuts that might be able to be taking place in our budget. I certainly support giving Mr. Moore the tools he needs to do what he needs to do with this. So I'd like to, probably have a little bit better plan than just pulling it out of our reserves. That's just my feeling. Or maybe we can think about go ahead pulling out of our reserves and have staff come back to us with maybe a way of replenishing said reserves out of our budgets if there's some budget savings, or once some things come a little bit more clear regarding the properties with PRHA. I think that's my only kind of hang up right now, is that possibly large expense that we don't know about right now.
Councilwoman Sims.
I was just going to mention, I think this legal expense on this particular activity of 12 years of
12 years.
with this property is highly unusual. This is not a regularly occurring type thing. To me, it's exactly what reserves can be used for, and I would hope that it's safe to assume that those reserves will be replenished sooner than later with the sale of some of those parcels. So I don't think that's unreasonable to expect in this calendar year at least.
With that, I'm actually going to make a motion to, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, I wanted to say that since November of 2015, our city attorney started working on this project. And I cannot tell you how many times we have sat in the EDA meeting and he presented to us where he was, what the expected expenses are, and that's now we're going into a fourth year. And so he has duly over 3 years. And we know we have new members, but the stage of which some of the new members came on were at the closing parts of it, which now he knows the exact figures of what it is. So I don't think it's one that the discussions have not taken place over a period of years. As we note, since November 1, the city attorney has attended every meeting of this EDA as a result of this particular project and trying to keep you all updated. But there have been many changes in its configuration.
Yeah.
You agree?
Thank you. I'm actually, to a certain extent, agreeing with you on this, being probably one of the members that was in that original vote. So I was going to make a motion to go ahead and approve this fund transfer from the to satisfy these requirements and requests of our staff, with an understanding that we would have a budget discussion at some point in the future.
Can I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay.
All right, in the rearview mirror.
Some applications for review here, and I will turn the floor over to Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Good morning again. We have two local incentive program applications that we're bringing before you for consideration this morning. The first that we'd like to present to you is for A+ Healthcare Partners. They are located at 1 Crawford Parkway, Suite 101. They are a home healthcare provider. They are operating a corporate office and training center there in their location. They are requesting a grant in the amount of $24,275 to assist with their interior build-out of the space. They're really looking to modernize their office suite to make some pretty substantial changes to a somewhat antiquated space. They are in the space now operating, but they are looking to make some renovations there. I'd like to present the next item to you, and then any questions you may have, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay.
The second application is for Victory West Thrill Park, LLC. They are located at 2880 Airline Boulevard in the Victory West Shopping Center. The applicant is the landlord. They are making some proposed exterior improvements on behalf of their tenant, which is Le Mans Karting Incorporated. They are in indoor go-kart facility. So the landlord has agreed to assist them with making some modifications to the exterior to really brand the building to their product. So this is what's being proposed in California and I believe South Carolina as well. So they will be doing some exterior painting, roof work, and lighting upgrades. The total grant request for Victory West is $25,000. We do expect that the tenant, Le Mans Karting, will be coming in at some point with an interior build-out application to help with some of their interior costs as well in the near future. Are there any questions?
Do we just vote on these, Mr. Hines?
I don't have a question. I'd like to thank staff for bringing these to us. If you've been paying attention at all in my tenure here, I've always talked about the fact that we need Portsmouth businesses having opportunities to quote these projects. And I would like to thank the A+ group, Healthcare Partners, for at least soliciting a Portsmouth business in their quotes. As you can see, they were the chosen quote, and they offered fantastic value, it looks like. So I just want to thank them for taking that extra step and for putting Portsmouth first in this. So with that, I'd like to offer a motion to approve.
Let's do them separately, so that's on the A+.
The A+ Healthcare Partners. I think the city manager had something.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think that the presentation this morning is definitely shows the commission, was it this year that you all extended it across the city?
Yeah.
We had it very much centralized to one part, and through you all's leadership, you decided to broaden it all across the city. And now you see the results of there are businesses that want to participate in the program, and that's excellent. They weren't, because it was just in the old town already.
Need a second.
Can I get a second on this on Mr. Hines' motion?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I just have one question. Are there any additional businesses in the pipeline that we're aware of at this point?
Yes, there are. We are waiting for additional information, but you will have additional applications coming through at this point. And I don't want to give you a number right this moment that it would be incorrect, but you are quickly depleting that line item. So $300,000 has gone rather quickly. And I think we're just under, Mr. Don, you correct me if I'm wrong, under 65.
We have approximately 65,000 left in the 300,000 allocation that you provided at the start of the fiscal year.
I'm delighted with that because
the first time
this is
it's
the
ever
first time
happened.
we've ever utilized
All of it.
anywhere near all of the money that we had allocated.
And if all of the applications come through that we anticipate, either we have in the office or we anticipate coming through, there's going to be a question of, do we do another budget amendment to address any applications that come in? So it's a good problem to have.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
in a similar vein, maybe we need to have an item added to our agenda next month to discuss what we want to do moving forward with that, whether it be a budget adjustment or whether we maybe form like an ad hoc committee to review these remaining applications in light of the budget adjustment we just made and subsequent budget adjustments that are going to be coming down the pipe. I know our original stance on this has always been once the money is gone, it's gone. But this is our first year coming out the gate, so we may want to think about how we want to proceed with that.
Chair,
Okay,
I'd like to add along the same lines, as we get more interest in this, maybe develop some criteria in terms of the selection process, like how much revenue is it generating for the city, et cetera, because we're going to reach a point, which will be good, that we won't be able to allocate funds to everyone. And so having that done now would probably be helpful.
Chair.
Yes.
If I could suggest, these are items that I would suggest we discuss at a retreat.
Absolutely. Sounds
I
good.
would look to have that retreat in March. We had the retreat in February of last year, but with the new members being on board, I think certainly that's a time and an opportunity to have that discussion. So if Chair and the Commission would allow, staff will go back and work on putting together the retreat for March. So instead of your March meeting being your normal meeting, it would be the retreat.
It's a great time to do that.
We will report back.
Thank you,
Did
Mr.
I
Gore.
get a second on this motion?
You did from Mr. Kovacic,
Okay,
so we just need to
so
vote.
we're ready if there's no further
Call the
discussion. Okay.
All right. Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Revel,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, motion carries, and that's for the interior build-out grant for A-plus healthcare.
And now we move to the Victory West. Can I hear a motion?
Move for adoption.
Give me a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Any further discussion or questions for staff on this?
All right,
Yeah.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Revel,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And I will give the floor to Mr. Moore now for a review and update.
Yes, we have, I've been asked by several commissioners to provide an update on where we were from a calendar standpoint in economic development and in where we are. So this was a presentation that was given to City Council. Thank you, sir. Back, as you can see, on November 26th. So we are this morning going to very quickly talk business. We have had what I consider to be a very successful year, focusing on our four focus or strategic areas: business retention and recruitment, making sure that we create a business-friendly environment, making sure that we have the infrastructure in place to support our businesses, and making sure we focus on talent recruitment and workforce development. From a standpoint of pursuing businesses, you all may recall that one of the first things we did about a year and a half ago was look at our target industries, and we've revamped those. And for the last year, we've been focusing on these six: maritime and logistics, small businesses, advanced manufacturing, as you can see there, the modeling and simulation, specialty retail, and information services. Again, we have been very successful. We worked 52 projects up until that time in November. We were on 7 scheduled trips with HREDA and VEDP, or Virginia Economic Development Partnership. We went on multiple marketing missions ourselves. We also had some TV advertising that we looked at. We always see, I'm sure you all watch NFL, NBA, you don't even have to watch that. A lot of times you're going to see commercials for other localities in our locality. That should not be the case. And if it is the case, then you should see us in their localities. And so we work with our marketing agency, and I'm hoping when I change the slide, it works. But we do have a new commercial that we have put forward, and I bet you we don't have any sound.
Ready to flip it back.
Let's try this one more time. Can we run it back, Mr. Donahue? Nope. It's not working.
We need to get Mr. Jones and go.
Okay, got to start narrating.
Yeah. Well, this is a quick 30-second slot that talks about everything that we've talked about: the dependable workforce, the quality of life, the opportunity to for a business to thrive. Let's see if we can make this work. And if not, we can have Mr. Jones come up later and we can make it happen.
I'll call him.
Yeah, so we'll just move forward and we'll show this to you before we leave, before you all leave. But we have been successful in that. What we do is we do have a marketing campaign that is showing throughout the Cox affiliates, more specifically Charlotte, Atlanta, and all the way out to Phoenix, Arizona. When we talk about retaining businesses, and I'm going to flip back one more time. Yeah, so you'll see at the top of the screen, and this is just a little chuckle every time we talk about this. People ask, how do we do what we do in economic development? And when we say that, we say we pray. And that's not necessarily in the biblical sense, even though we probably do that too. We pursue, we retain, we assess, and advance our workforce. From a standpoint of pursuit, again, we did the 52 projects that we have worked on. From a retention standpoint, as of July 1, we had met with 83 different businesses. Those 83 visits led to 5 different expansion projects that we're currently working right now. 2 major employers and taxpayers in the city of Portsmouth have expanded by an additional $3 to $5 million and another 30 to 40 employees. I think Mr. Jones is going to get us set up here. Still in the thunder from my presentation.
What is he? Water? Yeah, just has to.
Indoor. I should ask you. It's not working. What we can do is we can go ahead and we'll just move forward, but we'll send you all this presentation so you'll have it. Yeah, we
Scott, someone had disconnected the cord.
Wasn't this someone?
So many people come in and doing
A
things.
dependable workforce, a vibrant infrastructure, and most of all, ready access for employers, families, businesses, retailers, developers, restaurants, and lovers of art, culture, and entertainment. At the center of it all, access Portsmouth today.
I was definitely worth the wait. So, we have that showing in at least 3 different cities: Charlotte, Atlanta, and then all the way out to Phoenix. But we have it in all the Cox affiliates in between. But I know for certain we've had people call us and say they've seen that commercial out there. From a business retention standpoint, 83 what we call biz visits, where staff is physically sat down and met with individual companies. Again, that has led to 5 different expansion projects. When we talk about advancing our workforce, the Hire Portsmouth initiative, and again, Hire stands for helping individuals reach employment. That process is moving forward. We have an exciting program that we're going to talk about at the retreat with regards to the workforce development program that we have. But some of you all, I think, may have attended the new TCC Building Trades Academy, which is out on Airline Boulevard, and their initiative to train that new workforce. And finally, when we talk about praying, we assess our effectiveness as a staff. And how do we do that? We use SMART metrics. We're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. And all of those really are based off job creation, the wages that are paid, the investments that we attracted, or that new investment, and the revenues that we've earned. And again, we measure that all over time. What I can tell you is that in 2016, we did $8 million. In 2017, $44 million, and last year we did $104 million in new investments in our city. And I think that's a great achievement by staff. You will always hear me say that I have the best staff in the city, and I think these numbers definitely show that. Now that number, let me break that down a little bit. You've got $104 million in new investment. That comes out to a tax generation of about $730,000. The reason being is because what you have is, out of that $104 million, about $40 million, $44 million really, is what we consider that one-time shot in the arm. That's where properties have changed hands, new lease agreements have been signed, so on and so forth. But you have $60 million in brand new taxable generation that comes out to roughly $730,000 a year in tax generation. And we've affected 1,123 jobs. We've created 300 new jobs last year, and we retained, based off those expansions, 823 jobs. So I think that's something that we should all applaud. But specifically, the EDA has played a great part in making sure that we have the tools necessary to do what we need to do, as well as council and the city manager and city attorney and his staff, to make sure that we can be this successful. Economic development is a team effort. It's not something that's just 3, 4, or 5 people do. The city has really done a great job in making sure that we put ourselves front and center in the community and in the business community. Now, because people, and just so you know, those jobs that we created have an average salary of about $48,000, which is great because our average household income here, just the household income, is $42,000. So if we're creating jobs that average $48,000, that quality of life certainly goes up. Now, because the business community has invested in us, we have invested in ourselves. We have made sure as a staff that we have the top technology, all within our budget. We now have CoStar, which we've been using for about the last year and a half now, which is the leading property inventory and property information website. We also now use Salesforce to track our projects. And Salesforce is a industry standard when it comes to economic development, project management, and contact management. We just had this come online probably November, December. I think we had it finally completely done and set up for us, customized for us specifically to track everything from job creation to new investment to expansion, so on and so forth. And I can tell you, we have been successful utilizing these tools, and to the point that we are already, I don't want to toot our own horn, but I will. We are already at the point that we are on the 15th day of January, and we are into $15 million of new investment already for this year. So I can't promise triple digits, but I can say we're at least in the double digits already. What the other thing that we've also done is, let me do that. We've also wanted to make sure that when we talk about properties, which has been a key topic of the EDA because of the number of properties that you all have, we have now, Mr. Smith, can you go back one? Can you hit that one more time? Go back. We have invested in a new tool to help us market not only the properties that the EDA has, but the properties that the city currently has. And we have a new app. That's the Portsmouth Sale app. And that SAIL stands for Site Availability and Information Locator. We love the acronyms around here. But we have had 100 downloads of this app. It's a free app that really showcases the properties that you all have. Now I have Mr. Smith do a little demonstration of the app. Let's go.
So how much was your raise?
I didn't have a raise. I didn't get a raise.
Look at Dr. Pat. I'm mind your business.
When we talk about those budget amendments, no, I'm kidding.
What about they're so large this time?
I'm kidding. And I will say, while Mr. Jones is working his magic, we could not be successful from a technology standpoint if we did not have Mr. Jones, because he has been instrumental in helping us develop this app. This was his brainchild. We just gave the information. And also, this was a collaboration with another Portsmouth business, Simmons Incorporated. Simmons has moved from downtown, has grown exponentially by 75 employees, and they are now out at the Mass One building out near in the kind of Tripsland, Tri-Cities area. But again, another Portsmouth business. They also happen to be Small Business of the Year per the Chamber last year, 2018. But another collaboration that has worked out very well for us.
And a fantastic city partner as well.
Yes.
A lot of different things.
I've actually looked at the app. It's a wonderful app.
Thank you.
Very, very nicely done.
Thank you.
We distributed it.
I promise you all of this work this morning. I think because I touched it somehow. Yes, ma'am.
I want to say, you mentioned Mr. Daniel Jones. One of City Council's initiatives is to become four big things is to become a smart city, and the work that Mr. Jones has done presently puts us far ahead of any city in Hampton Roads. The city of Portsmouth is moving forward on beginning to lay their fiber for 5G. Other cities across Hampton Road have not even developed their, what is it called? What is the plan? What's the plan that no one else has right now?
Right.
Strategic fiber mesh.
We have our strategic fiber network already done, and that was completed in 16. And so with council's direction, we're moving forward in beginning to start that process. Why? Because 5G is coming, and if you read any articles, any city that's not preparing for it now will be left behind when it comes to businesses and development.
Okay. So let me just kind of touch base on the app a little bit. So on the app, what you can do is you can, and Mr. Mitchell, I'll let you speak to this a little bit, but you can do a search by size of the property. You can do a search whether you want it to be in an enterprise zone, a hub zone. We are working on updating the app so that you can search via opportunity zone. And this is all, again, city property. You have a couple key properties in there that may not be owned by the city that we figure are key properties that need to be marketed. But for all intents and purposes, you can pull up the property, pull up the information with regards to, you can touch the actual parcel, pull up the real estate information, and then as well have a street view of the property. So you can see exactly how it looks today. So we are very excited about that. And while Mr. Jones is still trying to get the application to show, I will say this. I'm going to take the opportunity to say this. We have, this is just a snapshot, this entire presentation, just a snapshot of where we are, I think, as a department, certainly as a city. The momentum that we have, everyone within the region and even outside of the region, all the way to the southwestern part of the state, is feeling the momentum. I don't know if you all have seen the news at all recently, but myself, the mayor, members of council, city manager, city attorney, as well as certainly Senator Lucas, were in Richmond yesterday for an announcement with regards to a property that is held by the city with regards to the Crawford Bay site. And we now are working with our colleagues in Bristol, Virginia, as well as Danville, Virginia, to put forth legislation to allow casinos in Virginia. As the mayor alluded to yesterday, we have a site, we have a local partner, as well as an agreement. And we are excited about that going forward. There is an announcement, a press conference today at 12 o'clock on the site that we would like for you all to attend. That gives some a little bit further information about the development itself. And I'm not going to go into all the details and numbers today because I would take away from the announcement. But at 12 o'clock, we will certainly have some investment numbers and things about the opportunity that is there. Wanted to make sure you all knew about it. I think we sent an email out to you, but we want to make sure that you all are aware and would love for you all to be there.
What's the address?
It's 8 Crawford Parkway. It's the former Holiday Inn site. I'll just look for the tent and 50 shade. But no, we are excited about the momentum that we have, and that's not all that's going on. I mean, that's just one part of the Crawford Gateway Revitalization Plan and the strategy that council approved in last year's retreat. We are still working on the PPEA process with regards to the relocation of City Hall. We will bring that forward to the City Council as well at their retreat. So we have a lot of synergy. And again, I want to bring up, we did receive and land the one CBD oil or medical cannabis oil regional facility in Portsmouth, 65,000 square feet, multi-million-dollar project by a billion-dollar company here in Portsmouth. So we are excited about that. That should be opening up in the spring. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair.
Sir.
Mr. Moore, I've been kind of thinking about what you were just talking about, the CBDG or the oil, cannabis oil. Have we given any thought about getting with, because it seems like the way this is going to probably roll out is that it's going to be kind of a vertical business. This company is going to be responsible for growing and doing basically the whole process from start to the end, because I think it's state law, if I'm not mistaken. Have we given any thought about working with the school system in regards to getting their CTE program in line with developing a workforce that would be able to, with the business development side of it, the agricultural side of it, those types, not necessarily working with that plan per se, but the basic concepts of that as part of our Higher Portsmouth plan?
We have looked at, let me break down how the jobs are, and certainly that is a great idea, and we agree that we should have that opportunity. You really have three kind of aspects to the business. You have the horticulture, which is the growing aspect, and then you have the actual chemists and scientists that are pulling out and making that oil and then you have the pharmacist and the pharmacy techs that dispense it. So certainly we love our students to go into the sciences, to go into the pharmacy techs, to go into the agricultural aspect of that. So we are looking forward to working with Columbia Care, which is a company that will locate here to develop that workforce and work with our schools to do that. Yes, sir.
In the meeting that we had with representatives from Columbia Care, and they are in Florida.
They are in New York.
Did they have
They have a location in Florida.
Yeah, a location in Florida. They indicated that they worked with schools, and so definitely we were excited because we definitely want them to work with Portsmouth Public Schools.
Yeah, and I think there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity that could come with, having that workforce right here. I think it regardless of where you fall on the side on it politically you fall on this, there's going to be opportunity that I think we need to make sure our workforce in our city is prepared to handle. So.
Mr. Scott.
While we're getting this together, I love the discussion, but I have to run.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see if we can move on these action items that we.
Yes.
We can.
If that's okay.
So I am finished. We would like to move forward if that's okay. I appreciate Mr. Jones attempting to get that together, and we apologize for not having that together. So I think the next item is a closed item.
Mr. Moore, I did have one question that I was hoping would be covered here. About 2 years ago, we acquired the Mary Jane Bakery and Evans Electric site. Do we have any updates at all in regards to the demolition of those two sites?
Yes, so those two sites, I believe the contract has gone to Dr. Patton's office, and she may have already signed them. We anticipate the demolition starting at the end of this month.
Okay.
To take those two buildings as well as the buildings at 700 Crawford down.
Yeah, we anticipated a rather faster, when we were presented this as an EDA, a much faster time to market or speed to market, in which we tied up about $800,000 of reserves that I would love to be able to at least get this thing on the market to see if we can recoup some of those funds. Thank you.
You need to go close session.
Okay.
Who's reading close?
You ready? I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711, 8.3, for the purpose of discussing disposition of publicly held real property interests where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding the 1500 block of High Street, 0 Harbor Center, and 602 Fifth Street, and pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711, 8.6, for the purpose of discussing or considering the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where if made public initially, the financial interest of the governmental unit would be adversely affected, specifically regarding the issuance of bonds. Second.
Second.
All right, Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, we're in closed session. Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
And we're in open session.
So we need to take care of these two resolutions.
Yes.
And I will add the budget amendment to the issuance of the bond as well.
What item's the first item?
The issuance of bonds for repayment of Victory Village and the subsequent budget amendment indicated.
Should we indicate our term that we discussed as well?
Is it in the resolution? Do we have the resolution?
The resolution was prepared by bond counsel, so it was very expressly crafted for the bond issuance. So what I would do is two separate items on that. I would
Okay.
do the initial resolution,
And the budget.
which is what we need legally to issue the bonds, and then you could do the budget amendment
Okay.
separately.
All right, I move that we accept the resolution as presented.
Second.
Right. Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. And then we're going to do one for the budget amendment associated with that.
And should we indicate our term, or is that something we talk about later? The length of time?
I mean, I think based on the discussion that we had.
You're okay with that? Okay. All right, I move that we allow such budget amendment to take the proceeds from said bonds to be adjusted in our budget and expensed appropriately at the appropriate time.
Second.
All right. Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Kovacic?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Revel?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
The Breeden Investment Properties.
Yes, this is to terminate the contract with Breeden on the North Pier.
So move.
All right. Give me a second.
Second.
Hines?
No.
Kovacic?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Revel?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 4-1. That's all we have.
All right, does anyone have anything else for the good of the cause? Any commissioners? Yes, ma'am.
I just want, since you all are working on your budgets for the upcoming fiscal year, I wanted to let you know that Authority will be looking to transfer the property at 818 County Street to you all.
Madam Chair, could we add that, that item to the next agenda item, just as a discussion about potential budget impacts? Maybe have staffs work together to see what their current expenditures look like.
Yes, and I had a couple of items that were kind of hanging out from things that commissioners had sent to me prior to the meeting. You know, the marketing of the Victory Village was an item that one commissioner brought up, and I didn't know, Mr. Moore, if you could speak to that.
Yeah,
briefly.
we are working. What I will say is we will have a formal plan ready. If not in February, we will have it for the retreat in March. Because that's a multi-step process. We're gonna have to rezone the property. We have to figure out concurrently with planning, with EDA, what the real direction is. Staff has an idea of what they would like to see, but certainly we want to discuss that with EDA and make sure that that clears with planning. So that's a multi-step process.
Do any other commissioners have anything else that they'd like to bring to the group?
Yeah, I was going to say about the Victory Village thing, it may be something we may want to get a council vision on as well. So, and I don't know when we'll have an opportunity to meet again together with the council. What that
Sounds
might
like
be.
we need to have a joint meeting with council.
I think that might be just a great idea, considering that this is going to be a very valuable piece of property.
Schedule is set. We look at the clerk's schedule to see when it's scheduled.
Right.
None of us know, so it's
We'll
already
double check
approved and
that.
scheduled.
I want to say it's later in the year, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There are several
We'll double
meetings.
check. We'll check.
Okay.
Mr. Moore will report that back next meeting.
Thank you.
Any other items for the good of the cause?
I just wanted to thank, I want one quick moment here. You mentioned that we had 2 commissioners that have termed out and 1 resignation. I would like for us to consider maybe a resolution or something to recognize their times here at a meeting, maybe some way of just another formal recognition. I know how much time, energy, and effort goes into this. One of our commissioners, if I'm not mistaken, had spent almost 10 years on this body. It's a long time to give to our city. So I'd like for us to maybe brainstorm in maybe a future meeting about what we can do to recognize those individuals.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Adjourned.
Thank you.